I was asked by Victor to put the story in a framework in 10 minutes. This morning I was told that I was going to be the first speaker and tell the story before it's been told. Strange things happen at one of these events, but this is an impossible task, but here goes. In 1940, the Council on Foreign Relations in Washington, D.C. decided that that Hitler was going to lose the war and that they should start preparing for the next empire, an American empire. And it was to comprise all of the area that Hitler had coveted, including the United Kingdom, all of North America, New Zealand, Australia, and much of the Southeast Pacific Rim. And they've been working at it ever since. They have linked forces with other organizations since, including the Bilderbergers, a post-war organization in Europe, which is the most secretive and one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful organization in the world today. And then the third, the Trilateral Commission, which was formed after Japan began its ascendancy. And these three have been working together, and I call them in my books the Three Sisters. They are the sort of the root of what I now call cabal, and other people call it the cabal as well. The cabal comprises the banking cartel, the oil cartel, the big transnational corporations, the intelligence agencies, many of them, but including the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and a couple of foreign ones, the MI6 from the UK and the Mossad from Israel, and a huge slice of the American military. And they are the cabal, and they have been running the United States for the last half century to the point where presidents have been little more than talking heads, and the Congress hasn't had a clue as to what was going on. After World War II, there was an operation called Operation Paperclip, which was approved by President Truman to bring Nazi scientists to the United States to help, presumably in the Cold War that would ensue. President Truman agreed on the condition that none of the scientists were to have been active members of the Nazi Party. The armed forces who were doing the invitation, the Army in particular, paid no attention to the president. As a former Minister of National Defense, I know how that works. And they recruited the ones they wanted. They gave them new names, new histories, and high-ranking jobs in the United States in the military and civil establishments. They were working on missiles and new weapon systems of various kinds. Well, then after the two crashes at Roswell, two UFO crashes at Roswell on July the 4th, 1947, one of the machines was sufficiently intact to be recovered, and they began back engineering that. Before long, they moved the operation to Nevada. And the president then was Eisenhower, and he wanted to know what they were doing out there, and they wouldn't tell him. So he threatened to send in the First Army from Colorado. And they capitulated and allowed him to send 4 trusted members of the CIA to visit Colorado and see what was going on. Well, what was going on was exactly what they really expected, and that is the back engineering of one of the vehicles from the Roswell area. I don't think there's been a president since, well, actually Truman, who has really been in the loop totally. President Eisenhower vented his frustration in his final speech to the American people at the time he was retiring from public life. He said, "Beware of the military-industrial complex." And the problem is we have paid no attention to him. An eyewitness who had worked in the company of President Eisenhower said what he was really concerned about was that the ET file had fallen into the wrong hands. And that's what he was really concerned about, and I wish he had said it. But that's, I guess, when the cover-up really got underway in earnest. Well, a lot of water has gone under the bridge since then. This cabal, their end game is a world government. They're calling it the New World Order, which is unelected and accountable only to them. That's what they're doing. And they're well on the road to do it. And you know, they were smart. They said, we won't do what Hitler did and try to take over all this world, these countries by military means. We will do it by using our brains and using the monetary system to crush the various countries to the point where the people will be glad to accept a military government. And we will use trade agreements, which are not really trade agreements, but which are in effect transfers of power from the people, the elected people, to the banking cartel and the transnational corporations. And they put a thing in the trade agreements which is called the dispute settlement mechanism. And it actually works this way, that if any government, like a provincial government in Canada or a state government in the United States, does something that affects the profits or potential profits of a foreign company, they can sue the government of Canada for lost profits or even lost potential profits, can you believe? They have more rights in Canada than Canadian citizens, and of course it works the same way with the United States. It's wrong in principle. Two final words. The reason they don't want us to know what they're doing is because of too many of us knew what they were doing. They might not be able to get away with it. And the reason that you don't read about it is that if you get a copy of Daniel Estulin most recent book, he was the writer of The True Story of the Bilderberger. There are several pages, chapter and verse, that show that every major news outlet in the English-speaking world is controlled by a Bilderberger. Thank you very much.
So we're going to start in South Texas, and as we could see, the flooding that has been hammering that area, the worst flooding since Harvey last year, has led to enormous sinkholes. And just look at this picture. This picture says a great deal about what we have going on right here. It's incredible. We're seeing things like this all over the country and all over the world, as we were saying yesterday. And as this title right here says, from ABC 13, flooding in parts of South Texas create large sinkholes. And on Thursday, Governor Greg Abbott issued a state disaster declaration for areas impacted by severe weather and flooding, including Aransas, Cameron, Hidalgo, San Patricio, and Willacy counties. As severe weather and flooding continues to impact parts of Texas, our first priority is to ensure the safety of our fellow Texans in harm's way. The state of Texas has activated all necessary resources to help to respond to the ongoing severe weather, and we will continue to provide assistance to local communities. I thank our first responders who are working to keep Texans safe, and I encourage all those in the affected regions to continue to heed all warnings from local officials. And so they're going to start to work on repairing these sinkholes, which obviously some of these it's going to take a long time, and some of these roads are going to be blocked off for quite a while. There's so much going on here. There really is. What we're seeing is incredible. And in South Texas, the floods have triggered hundreds of water rescues, and as we said, state of emergency declared. It's, what can we say? I mean, it's just a awesome thing to behold in a negative sense. I mean, the power and the destructive ability of the water. Or is that all that's really going on here? Are there other things going on behind the scenes? So 140 campers rescued floating bears as Montana and Texas flood. And this is NBC News. So this is mainstream. They can't hide it. It's getting too big. The scope of this is really the thing that's amazing. So the mother of one of the campers, her 9-year-old daughter, spotted a grizzly bear that had been swept away by a fast-running creek on her ranch near Augusta. And this is so ominous. Here we see a U.S. Army Chinook helicopter loading people up. Mostly it looks like kids, and middle school students, and they're from the Montana Wilderness School of the Bible. Just kind of like an ominous scene, it's like something out of a disaster movie that we're seeing going on around the country and around the world. And Texas saw deluges all week. The soaking in both Texas and Montana comes in stark contrast to the tinder dry conditions of the American Southwest, which is experiencing drought and an early wildfire season. And here we see some other pictures of the flooding going on. And it seems like there's an awful lot of main streets in the USA that look like this, that we have to go get the kayaks out to get around in. Otherwise, get your swimming in. Of course, if you're up in an area in Montana, or if you're, say, in British Columbia in Canada, it's going to be a little bit chilly. And it'll be chillier when we start moving into the fall as well. And, these are not the only areas getting hit with this. It's been, just, you can't count all the places. Chicago right now is getting hammered with the rains as well. Many roadways are being affected. Flash flooding warning remains in effect. Soils are saturated. Rivers are running near bank full or in flood mode, and additional rains may collect quickly. And so this is, again, another area that's getting hard hit right now. Extreme weather sparking big problems in British Columbia's interior. Crews are battling several wildfires going on right now, and also keep in mind the swarming in that whole Cascadia subduction zone going on right now as well. And then the other thing that has been just constant is the volcanoes, and this is talking about the volcanic unrest continues. Eruptions at Anak Krakatoa and Sinabung in Indonesia, Shimodake and Japan, and Talika in Nicaragua, as well as many, many others. So there's just so much being put in the air by these volcanoes. Luckily we haven't had a V5 or anything like that yet, but it's definitely adding up, and it's coming in so many different areas now. And as we're looking at this, we go over to the watchers, and Shinmo Adaki erupted again, and this has been erupting. And so this was the first since May 14th, and it erupted up to 14,000 feet above sea level. And so we can definitely expect it's going to add to the grand solar minimum and the cooling that we're seeing. And if you bet for a 5.3 volcanic eruption at Hawaii's Big Island yesterday, we were actually wrong. It's a 5.4. So hey, they're acknowledging a small increase. But as we can see, this is now the, I believe, 12th day in a row of something around that 5.3 or 5.4. And really, it goes back even farther if we start going into the 5.2s. I mean, generally, there's been an eruption almost every single day like clockwork. And the situation there is so far from over. At the moment, you have 645 quakes in 24 hours after the eruption. And as we could see, it's building up rapidly, and actually it's spreading into some areas that we haven't seen so many when we look at it, coming more across to the northwestern part. And these are very close to Mauna Loa, although they are relatively far down, not above sea level. But you can see this is just it keeps slowly increasing. It keeps slowly building. So Hawaii is nowhere near done. Nowhere near at all. And we're just taking a quick peek around the Ring of Fire. We see a lack right now in Japan. So that area we should note for potential. And pretty much typical ones. This is the 6.1 we talked about last night in Vanuatu. 5.4 Tonga, 4.9 New Zealand, and 4.6 in New Zealand. Going on across, we have a 5.7 Argentina, 4.7 in Chile, and another 4.7 in Chile as well. So this is really pretty scary, and especially when, if you guys remember, I was telling you about a source that was telling me that they've kind of upped the ante in the chemtrails and what they're spraying. And the source said that zombie warning that came out was actually white hats giving a heads up that, and this is the zombie warning that came out in Florida, where it was saying zombie alert. Like zombies have been sighted, and then warning about Terminus. And Terminus was in Walking Dead. It was that place that was supposed to be a place of hope. And so, the cast of characters in Walking Dead were making their way to Terminus in the hopes that this is a human civilization that's going to take them in and shelter them, and things are going to start to get better. And when they got there, really what it was humans bringing other humans in and then killing them and turning them into food. So it was not a good situation. And so that warning appeared, and it was very, very ominous. And the source says that what it is a warning from the white hats that they are putting viruses and things in the chemtrails that are going to lead to different illnesses, in particularly ones that are going to affect the frontal lobe and cause zombie-like conditions. And it made me think about that amoeba situation where they found those amoebas in Louisiana that will actually go into the brain, and not a good thing. But here we have 33 children examined after getting sick at Lake Placid 4-H camp. And this is here in Florida. And so it's interesting, the numerology. We have 33, right? 33 is a very significant number, and it's 33 is the age that Christ was when he died, supposedly. 33rd degree Mason, like the highest level. There's so much with it. And then numerologically, 3 plus 3 equals 6, which in some circles is kind of a divine imperfection or more of a ominous number, as we know with 666. And so this is just something that felt a little bit ominous to me that I wanted to point out to you guys. 3 adults also felt ill. So you have 33 kids and 3 adults. And 333, then you add that together, that's 9. That's completion in numerology. Very interesting. The victim suffered a range of symptoms from fever to nausea and vomiting. It's a medical mystery. And the emergency crews realized how bad it became among the group when a child passed out on Thursday. So a county spokesman said crews blocked off the area where they know a majority of the patients came sick. Altogether, there were about 120 kids, and 1 plus 2 equals 3, at the youth camp, and their ages ranged from 8 to 15 years. And it said Heather Kent, an interim associate state 4-H program leader. So, just kind of ominous. And it's not the only thing that's like ominous. There's a lot of ominous signs out there. First human case of virus spread by mosquitoes reported in Florida. Here's Florida again. And it's mosquito season, and it's almost impossible to avoid being bitten. Concerns about mosquito-borne viruses like Zika and West Nile are renewed each year, but a mosquito-borne disease thought to only be transmitted to animals seems to have jumped the barrier to humans. Scientists first discovered the Keystone virus in the Keystone area of Tampa 50 years ago. The first known case of the disease was identified in North Florida, but it took doctors a year to make the diagnosis. Doctors say there were likely to be other undiagnosed cases before this one, and so there's a reasonable chance that there's a number of cases out there. The patient is a 16-year-old boy, and after attending band camp in North Florida last summer, he went to a walk-in clinic complaining of fever and a severe rash. The teen exhibited only mild symptoms. Doctors tested him for various pathogens, including Zika, but nothing came back positive. After a year investigating, finally they figured out it was the Keystone virus. And so they suspect a lot of other people across the Southeast may have the virus but have not been diagnosed. And so in mosquitoes, the virus has shown up from Chesapeake Bay to Florida all the way up to Texas. Right now there's no simple test to identify it, but that could change soon. And Dr. Morris says several biomedical companies have contacted the University of Florida to talk about developing one. Yes.